You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
You're listening to Straight to the Extra Point Alma Mater, your Niagara source for all NCAA football news, weekly betting odds, game analysis, race for the college football playoffs, and reactions to the AP Top 25 rankings. Here are your hosts, Brandon Caputo and Trey Patterson.
Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another installment of Straight to the Extra Point Alma Mater, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Your October 8th, 2020 edition. Your source North American sports coverage by sports fans, for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the good old Niagara region. Find us on social media for updates, giveaways, and sponsor promo codes each month by following us on Twitter, Instagram, and liking us on Facebook by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. Listen to us on our main platform, which is Spreaker.com, and the free Spreaker app by searching the Armchair GMs. As well, we are on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Deezer by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. And lastly, check out our beautiful user-friendly website, armchairgmsports.com, for all things regarding our network. Articles, podcast episodes, sponsors, and contributors. Everything's on there for you guys. Please check us out on whatever platform is most convenient for you to listen to us. Please give us a like and smash that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening right now. Give us some love. And as always, I'm one of your hosts of Straight to the Extra Point, Alma Mater Cappy. You can follow me on Twitter, at Caputo13 with a Canadian Z. And I'm always pleased to be joined on the college football portion of the network by my friend and contributor for Fox Sports Knoxville, covering the Tennessee Vols. He is Trey Patterson. You can follow him on Twitter, at Trey Patterson. Trey, welcome back for another week of college football.
Hey, great to be here. Anytime we get to discuss college football, I'm a happy man. As
Cardell Jones said, I didn't come here to play school. I came here to play football.
I came here to talk football.
Exactly. So, guys, what we're going to do today is look over what was a crazy Week 5 in college football. Major upsets going on all over the place. Teams not covering and making Trey's picks look bad. We're going to go over the new updated AP Top 25 poll, and then Trey's going to do his Week 6 picks. So, standard as what's going on with the show this week. But Trey, let's jump into what happened last week. And this first segment today, is brought to you by Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, home of the best pizza and wing combos in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Call today, 905-374-4400 and carmine'spizzeria.ca. This month's promo code is Armchair Mushroom for 10% off your entire order when you call for call-ahead pickup or delivery. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, way too good. So, Trey, we had some upsets last week in Week 5 of college football, and we might as well start off, with the Big 12, and this looks like a complete nightmare right now. You have Oklahoma losing for the second straight week against an unranked opponent, and just as bad, you have the Texas Longhorns, who could use that as an opportunity to take over the Big 12. Instead, they do not cover against Texas Tech and straight up lose to TCU this week. So, what are you thinking of the two big powerhouses in the Big 12, and what happened to them last week?
Yeah, man, that's crazy. We saw, I think it was the week prior, Oklahoma also lost to Kansas State, which was a team that's kind of been their kryptonite. And then Texas comes out this week, has a game against TCU, and I guess you could also say that TCU is kind of Texas's kryptonite. I saw a stat after the game saying now that since TCU has joined the Big 12, they've beaten Texas 8 out of the 12 times that they've played now.
Beautiful.
Or it might be 9 out of the 12 times they've played. And I think it was 8 out of 11 before the game, so now it would be 9 of 12, which is just an absurd statistic when you really think about it. Yeah, Texas dropped the ball here, but I guess lucky for them, Oklahoma just still found another way to lose this week. They are not looking good at all. Their new quarterback, I mean, he looks the part, but it might just be the rest of the team around him is not what we're accustomed to seeing out there in Norman. And now when you talk about teams that are left in the Big 12, I mean, Oklahoma State has to be the front runner now. They have a legit quarterback there, and when you even go back to week 3, I think it was, they almost lost to Tulsa. They were in a tie ball game with Tulsa in the fourth quarter until their third string quarterback came in and saved the day. So it's a crazy year in college football, and nothing is showing that more than what's going on in the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Oklahoma straight up loses to Iowa State, a score of 37-30, and Texas loses to the Horned Frogs. Oh man, 33-31. Just another brutal performance by the Texas defense. Don't know what more you can say about that, but both these teams, one of them's going to win this week because they're playing each other in the Red River rivalry, which is supposed to be one of the biggest games in college football, and both these teams barely coming in there looking like a football team, so we'll have to see which team gets back on track, but we'll talk about that when Trey does his picks for Week 6. But going over the rest of Week 5 here, Trey, a couple of disappointing teams did not, or a couple of good teams did not cover, including Clemson, who you had picked, Auburn, they got blown out by Georgia in what everybody expected to be a pretty good game there, 27-6. What are you thinking of that big game there in the SEC between Georgia and Auburn?
Yeah, that was one that we all seemed to be pretty excited for. Thought that was going to be a really good game. The first real test that Georgia was going to face this year, aside from Arkansas Week 1, which actually did probably give them more of a test than Auburn did. But I think that game, we know Georgia's a good team, but I think that game told us more about Auburn than it did Georgia. I think after watching that, Auburn is just a really bad team. I think they're a poorly coached team. I watched a lot of that game, and a lot of the play calls just did not seem to make much sense at all. Their leading rusher ended up being their quarterback, Bo Nix. Was not a good performance from him. The defense for Auburn came around in the second half, but that's not so much about the defense playing well as I think Georgia just kind of went more vanilla with their offense and wanted to try to save some stuff for the rest of the season. So I think the biggest takeaway is that Auburn is a lot worse than we thought, rather than Georgia being a lot better. We already know Georgia's a really good team, and I don't think this win automatically just goes and makes them a playoff contender.
We all know how great Georgia's defense is, but do you think that this was a combinate more of Auburn's offense not getting it done than Georgia's defense shutting them down?
I think, well, for sure you have to say that the defense for Georgia shut down Auburn's offense. But when it comes to Georgia's offense, they were just able to run the ball right down Auburn's throat. Their quarterback did not particularly have that great of a game. He was a good game manager, did what he needed to do for his team to win. But on first and second down, every single time, you'd just hand it off to one of the backs, and they'd run for, it seemed like, at least 8 yards every time. So Auburn's defensive front 7, is probably what ultimately costed them that game.
Another team from the SEC that finally got back on track this week after losing in Week 4 was LSU, and granted, they played Vanderbilt, but LSU gets back on track. They cover. They win 41-7 versus Vanderbilt. Do you think LSU finally, turning the tide here and getting back on track, not just being able to cover, but being able to actually win after a very disappointing Week 4 effort?
Yeah, the first game of the season for them against Mississippi State, I don't think they really knew what they were getting into with Mississippi State in that air raid offense. They didn't really have much to go off of film-wise to prepare, which probably caught them off guard and why they lost that game. Now, I'm not ready to say that beating Vanderbilt is getting them back on track. Everybody beats Vanderbilt by 40 points. That should be the norm in the SEC. But at least they didn't go out and lay an egg or just scrape by like Texas A&M did. This is definitely a step in the right direction, but I'm not ready yet to say that they're back on track.
Speaking of Mississippi State, a team that looked like they were on the rise, and they lost to Arkansas this week, 21-14. Does that concern you about Mississippi State after coming off that big win against LSU in Week 4?
Oh, absolutely it does. The Arkansas was able to game plan for this offense, probably because they had some film. on them. They were able to see everything. Mississippi State didn't hold anything back against LSU, so everything that they were going to run against Arkansas was already on tape. Pittman and his coordinators were able to prepare for that, and they did a good job. Although I do think Mississippi State shot themselves on the foot more times than Arkansas made good plays. I don't obviously Arkansas won the game, but I think this is a game that you could say that Mississippi State flat out lost as opposed to Arkansas going out there and winning. I think the first drive of the game, Mississippi State threw a pick six. At the very end of the game, Mississippi State was about to get the ball back. Arkansas was lined up to punt the ball. And there was about 2.5-3 minutes left or so. And the Mississippi State punt returner just muffed the punt. He called for a fair catch, was just sitting there, muffed it. Arkansas recovered it, and they never got the ball back. So I think Mississippi State made a ton of mental errors, mental mistakes, and in the end, I think that's what costed them.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound like you're going to win a lot of football games making mistakes like that. But team also gets back on track and actually covers is Alabama. They took down Texas A&M, a score of 52-24, Trey. So big win for Alabama, getting back on track as well after a couple shaky performances.
Yeah, good win for Alabama. Nobody's really sure what we're going to see in Texas A&M yet. They did have that rough game against Vanderbilt to start the season. And then I think it was in the second quarter of the Alabama-Texas A&M game where A&M scored a touchdown, kind of on a fluky play, but not – I mean, it was a really good play by the receiver who caught the ball, and the Alabama safety came over and thought he pushed him out of bounds. And I still have no idea how the Texas A&M player didn't step out of bounds, but he didn't, and he was able to run 40 yards down the sideline for a touchdown. And then on the next drive, they had what was essentially a pick six. The guy got tackled, I think, at like the 10-yard line, and A&M was able to punch it in. But after that, that was pretty much it for the rest of the game for Texas A&M. Alabama locked it down, and they did what any old Nick Saban team does, and they just beat the brakes off of you.
Yep, unfortunately. But going off of the rest of the ranked teams, Florida took down South Carolina 38-24, although they did not cover. Your Tennessee Volunteers took down Missouri, score of 35-12. Were you pleased with the effort by your Vols this week?
Extremely. I'm pretty sure last week I picked Missouri to cover. I think it was sitting at 10.5 or so, right around there.
11.
11. Okay, so yeah, I thought Tennessee was winning. I went on record saying I thought Tennessee was going to win last week. I didn't think Tennessee was going to dominate the game from start to finish. Getting Cade Mays back on the offensive line, he was cleared, so this game against Missouri was his first game back. It really improved the offensive line as a whole. I've said this before that Trey Smith, I think, is one of the best interior, if not the best interior offensive lineman in all of college football. So whenever it's a running play and you know that the offense is about to run the ball, more times than not, Tennessee's going to run the ball to the left side to run behind Trey Smith. Well, now when you line Cade Mays up on the right side, that offensive front is completely unified and dangerous in all positions. So it's never just they're running left this time, left now. They can go right, they can go left, they can go up the middle. Tennessee had 4 quarterback sneaks in that game. And at one point, they were on the 3-yard line and ran a quarterback sneak in the end zone, and they got a touchdown on a 3-yard quarterback sneak. That's how good that offensive line was on Saturday. So I think the biggest takeaway is that Tennessee just owned the game from start to finish, and the offensive line is starting to look like one of the best in the country.
Okay, so good start here for the Tennessee Vols as they try to work their way back up the AP poll here, currently ranked at number 21 going into Week 6. And then obviously you had number 24 Pitt at the time. They were having a great season. They straight up lost to NC State, so yeah, Pitt's going to be unranked once again. You had number 25 ranked Memphis lose to SMU, score of 30-27. Number 15 Cincinnati took down South Florida 28-7. North Carolina beat Boston College 26-22. You had mentioned Oklahoma State put a whooping on Kansas 47-7. And UCF, I think, has to be one of the most disappointing losses of the week as well. Number 11 ranked UCF straight up loses to Tulsa. So for you Tulsa bettors out there, I'm sure you guys made bank that day. But other than that, Trey, I know as far as your game picks go, unfortunately it was around another 500 record for you this week. But, I mean, you went 9-12. But again, I don't think I think a lot of people are around the same with you because who else has Texas and Oklahoma straight up losing these games or, Alabama not covering last week, Clemson not covering this week. So there's a lot of the big name teams are just either A, not covering, or B, which is even worse, just straight up not winning games. So I think that's affecting a lot of bettors this year.
Yeah, it is. It's a tough season to bet, especially at the beginning of the season, because we didn't get the spring ball to judge how teams were going to play. We didn't get the full access into fall camps like we normally do due to the COVID restrictions. So for the first week or so, it's kind of just guessing on what you think is going to happen. Now that we're getting a few games under our belt, we're actually able to see what the product's going to be like, and it should help as the season progresses.
Yeah, and again, it seems like this is preseason for these teams right now, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get going here. You did get your upset of the week though with Ole Miss taking down Kentucky. I'll let you have the final thoughts on that this segment with that.
Yeah, the Kentucky, I'm not sure what's wrong with them. That was actually a really good game. And when it went into overtime, I was pretty much locked into at least having Ole Miss cover no matter what. Even if they ended up losing the game, they would still get the cover. But Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin, they got their first big win with the new coach. And Kentucky just looks lost compared to where many people thought they were going to be. Kentucky fans especially, I see them on Twitter as a Tennessee fan all the time because there's a lot of chirping between the two schools' fan bases. They thought they were going to be not just dark horse contenders for the SEC East. They thought they were legit contenders for the SEC East, and that couldn't be any further from the truth right now. And I don't think it's for a lack of talent. I think the team has talent. They're just struggling to figure out how to win right now. And I'm not sure what that is. I think Mark Stoops is a good coach. He's built that program up from complete mediocrity from what they used to be to an actually pretty good, decent program right now. Their kicker did let them down in the game against Ole Miss. In overtime, Kentucky scored the first touchdown, and then their kicker missed the extra point, which ended up coming to bite them as Ole Miss scored a touchdown and then made the extra point for the win. So it's not like they played bad against Ole Miss, but that's still a game that, if you ask any Kentucky fan, that they should have won.
Okay, so with that being said, guys, that's basically it for another wild week of college football, Week 5. Should be interesting to see what goes into Week 6, and hopefully some of these teams start learning how to cover the spreads, because this is getting pretty annoying for Treigh here, having to pick against some of these powerhouse teams that just aren't getting it done. So with that being said, guys, we're going to take our first commercial break on the show today. We're going to come back and discuss the new updated AP Top 25 poll going into Week 6. So stay here. We'll be right back here on Straight to the Extra Point, Alma Mater, and right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, serving traditional-style Italian pizzas made with the freshest, top-quality ingredients. Loaded subs and their famous chicken wings. Winners of the Reader's Choice Diamond Award, 4 years running from Niagara this week for Best Pizza and Wings in Niagara Falls. Home of the best tray and wing combo in town for the price and quality. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., located on the corner of Drummond Road and Dunn Street. Available for call-ahead pickup or delivery at 905-374-4400. Make sure to like them on Facebook and view their website for their menu at carmine'spizzeria.ca. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano. Way too good. As we all adjust to this new world that we're living in today, masks are now mandatory, and Niagara's own Custom PPE is Canada's leading face mask provider. Visit them online at customppe.ca and choose between several mask options with different colors and sizes. Add your organization, company, or team logo so you make your face masks unique. Available to purchase online 24/7 at customppe.ca and shipped within 1 week. They have the best prices and quickest turnaround in Canada, and no order is too big or too small. Also offering custom floor stickers as well as face and counter shields for your business or workplace. Visit customppe.ca and use the code ARMCHAIR at checkout for 20% off your custom or blank face mask today. Custom PPE, Canada's leading face mask provider. Attention job seekers, if you are currently looking for work in the Niagara region, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road, Niagara Falls, directly across from the Camisos Plaza. Their free services include resume and cover letter writing, community resource and referral information, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, second career information and registration assistance, and all their services are currently provided by appointment only. So give them a call at 905-358-0021 or visit their website at ehc.on.ca, the Niagara Employment Help Center. This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Alright guys, welcome back to the second segment of our Straight to the Extra Point alma mater, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Cappy and Treigh back with you here. And this segment today is brought to you by J&L Flooring, a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. Simplified processes in making homes beautiful are their specialty. 905-358-3299 or jnlflooring.com to start today. So Treigh, let's take a look at the updated AP Top 25 poll. And you know what? I mean, not much going on at the top here. I mean, you have Clemson at number 1, Alabama at number 2, but we did have a swap between Georgia and Florida at 3 and 4. Notre Dame stays at 5. Ohio State stays at 6. And then crapshoot from there. So what's sticking out to you there, Treigh? What some teams that jumped up or teams that fell? What surprised you this week on the poll?
Well, Clemson and Alabama, I think those could kind of just be marked as a 1A and 1B. I don't think you could definitively say one team is better than the other so far. And then Georgia did jump Florida, which I thought was accurate. Georgia not only covered against Auburn, but they beat them, like flat out just beat the brakes off of them, which was a ranked team. I think they were ranked in the top 10.
They were ranked. I'm pretty sure they were ranked 7th at the time.
Yeah, so a top 10 win I think should make you jump over the Florida team that's only beaten 2 non-ranked SEC teams. But Florida still looks good, so I think you could probably consider those like a 3A and 3B. I think both of those teams are good, and that matchup that's going to happen later on this year is going to be a good one as well down there in Jacksonville. Aside from that, Miami being up to number 7. They were 8 last week, but now sitting there at 7, they've showed that they're a really good team. They're not just beating teams or dominating the games that they're playing in, but they do have a tough matchup this week that we'll talk about later. But I think that's a really good spot for them at 7. I might even, just because Ohio State hasn't played, I might have even slipped them ahead, put them at 6 just to make this week's matchup even more intriguing. But I digress. After that, I mean, not to sound biased, but Tennessee moved up 7 spots. They went from 21 to 14. And I know they looked impressive against Missouri, but I think it was more a lot to do with a lot of the other teams losing, like Texas and Oklahoma, UCF, Auburn, are reasons why Tennessee jumped up so high. I do think they're a good team. I don't know if they're quite yet 14, but we'll find out when Tennessee plays Georgia this weekend. BYU is a big one, though. I think BYU is definitely a top 15 team. It's a shame they're not able to play their normal schedule because they had a lot of good matchups on their docket coming into this year. They kind of had to make a makeshift schedule. So unfortunately, I think even if they were somehow to go undefeated, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs just because of how their schedule ended up setting up this year, which is unfortunate. And then after that, SMU making their debut into the top 25. They're 4-0 on the year. I think SMU is going to program on the rise. They have a really good quarterback recruit that's committed to him. He's a top 5 overall quarterback recruit coming out of high school. His brother plays at SMU, which is why he chose them. And he chose them over programs like Alabama and Texas and USC. I mean, he chose SMU over big-name schools, so that was a huge get for SMU. So they could be a program on the rise, much like how we've seen UCF dominate the group of 5 teams for the past couple of years. SMU could be that team that's going to take over that role. As for everything else, Iowa State's making their debut after beating Oklahoma, though I guess you kind of have to include them there. And then Mississippi State falling out. They were not ranked to start the season, beat LSU, and then jumped up all the way to number 16, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And then they lost to Arkansas, and now they're back out.
Yeah, and you look at a couple other teams that are also making their debut. Virginia Tech is up to 19. You have the Ragin' Cajuns, Louisiana Lafayette, up to 23. You mentioned Iowa State and Minnesota. They haven't played a game yet, but they are ranked at number 25. So there's going to be some notable teams that aren't on this list. One of them is the Oklahoma Sooners, Treigh. Unbelievable. Who would have thought that coming into this game in the Red River rivalry that Texas would be ranked 22 and Oklahoma would be unranked?
Yeah, I sent out a tweet last week while the games were going on. It might have been when Texas, I think after Texas had lost and Oklahoma was in the process of losing. And I just sent out a tweet saying that the Red River rivalry is looking less and less appealing by the minute. And I mean, it's always going to be a good game just because of the 2 programs and the rivalry that's there. But in terms of a national standpoint and in terms of the rankings, it's just not going to have that same appeal.
Mm-hmm. So Looking at the rankings, Treigh, what team do you think is continuing to go on the rise here, and do you think that might have a chance to sneak in? It's early, but I mean, you basically say Clemson, Alabama, Georgia are probably 3 of the 4 teams that are going to be in right now. I mean, obviously the Big Ten hasn't played a game yet, so Ohio State, we don't really know what's going on with what they're going to look like, or even Penn State at this point, so or even Oregon in the Pac-12. So, what are you looking at here? What team do you think is continuing to climb up the rankings for you, and a team that you can kind of see being involved in this playoff picture?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a team, but maybe just a conference. I think for the past 5-6 years or so, ever since Clemson's gone on this run as one of the elite top-end programs in the country, many people have always considered the ACC to be the weakest conference outside of maybe the Pac-12 in terms of top-to-bottom strength. Usually you have Clemson, and then there's a major drop-off. In the past, you had Florida State there, but Florida State's near the bottom of that group now. But now when you look at the top 8, there are 4 ACC teams in that top 8. And North Carolina, Miami, include Notre Dame because they are playing in the ACC this year, and then, of course, Clemson. So I don't think it's necessarily a team per se, but it's looking like this might be the best chance that the ACC will ever have in the history of the playoff, to have 2 teams make that Final Four.
Yeah, they're looking really good right now. Like you mentioned, 4 teams in the top 10 right now. So we'll have to see how that shakes out, and how that will be determined once the Big Ten and the Pac-12 come in. But it's definitely a really good start for the ACC, and I think the Big 12 has got to be the biggest disappointment so far with the way that their teams have been playing. And Oklahoma State basically being the top dog, ranked number 12 or ranked number 10 at this point. Sorry, with a 3-0 record. But as for the rest of the conference, not looking too good right now. So they got to pick it up. But with that being said, we're going to take our last commercial break on the show today. We're going to come back, and we're going to get Treih's of Week 6 picks. So don't go anywhere. You want to hear this. You want to get these picks in. So we'll be right back here on Straight to the Extra Point, Alma Mater, and right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
J&L Flooring is a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride in providing elite customer service and support. They are a specialty flooring and decor boutique shop with a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety and truly unique selection of products. All their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced, so you can feel great about your flooring choices. Their goal as a local business is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity, offering unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team. They connect with their customers to simplify the process to make their life easier and to make their homes beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road, Niagara Falls, or find out more at jnlflooring.com. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. 905-358-3299, J&L Flooring.
The Spicy Olive Bar and Grill is located on the top of Clifton Hill and just a 5-minute walk from the majestic Niagara Falls. It is conveniently nestled in the heart of the tourist district. A family-owned and operated business, the Spicy Olive opened its doors in May of 2003 and has since been established as an authentic and unique Italian restaurant and bar. Its rustic ambiance and time-worn finishing provide a warm and inviting dining experience. Offering an array of delicious dishes, they specialize in authentic Italian cuisine, homemade sauces, fresh ingredients, and consistently providing a strong foundation on which they build their menu. As night falls, the Spicy Olive shifts to a lively lounge where drinks and live music come together to make a perfect evening. For more than 15 years, they have provided not only for their dedicated locals, but their customers from all over the world with authentic Italian food and great live entertainment. Open daily 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. for dinner and till 2 a.m. for drinks. Check out their new menu and book reservations on their website at Spicy Olive Bar and Grill, it's with an E at the end, .com, or call 905-371-2323 for reservations as well. The Spicy Olive Bar and Grill.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the final segment of our Straight to the Extra Point Alma Mater. Cappy and Treigh back with you here. And Treigh, it's that time of the week again. I know you're fired up to get back on track here after a couple of mediocre weeks, thanks to some high-powered teams not getting it done. So, are you ready to go here with the Week 6 picks?
Yeah, I can't do much worse, so let's get back on track.
Absolutely. And this segment today is brought to you by Custom PPE, Canada's leading face mask provider. Best prices and quickest turnaround in Canada, built from right here in the Niagara region. Order today at customppe.ca. Use the code armchair at checkout for 20% off your entire order. So again, customppe.ca and use the code armchair at checkout. You get 20% off on your custom face masks. Who doesn't need those in this time? So make sure you're checking them out and telling them the Armchair GM sent you. So, Treigh, let's start off here by talking about LSU Missouri, which I know I'm going to let you elaborate on, which was supposed to be a 9 o'clock game played at LSU. It has now been changed to a noon kick in Missouri.
Yeah, there's a hurricane coming through the southeast here this weekend. I think it's actually supposed to make landfall here maybe tomorrow or so. So they had to go ahead and not postpone the game, but move locations, which in a normal year would I would say be a disadvantage, but with the lack of crowds, I don't think it's as big of a disadvantage. It's still different when you're waking up in your own bed as opposed to having to travel, go on the road, and being moved to a noon kick is never fun either. But Missouri, I don't think is that good of a team. They do have a really good quarterback that stepped in. I think Eli Drinkowitz found his actual starter because he had been rotating quarterbacks the first 2 weeks. I do think they found their starter, which should help, but I think LSU rolls here. I think they're trying to get back on track, and I think LSU wins this by at least 21.
Okay, so the spread for this game was 14, so Treigh is going with them to win by at least that much. Moving in here to Virginia, number 19 ranked, traveling to number 8 North Carolina. North Carolina favored by 5 at home.
Yep, North Carolina still undefeated in the ACC. Virginia Tech making their way into the polls for the first time, as we talked about earlier. ACC seemingly stronger conference than they have been in years past. But if North Carolina wants to continue to contend for that ACC crown and be a legit competitor there, this is a game they have to win. Give me North Carolina at -5.
Okay, UNC at -5 as they continue to build up that football program. Moving on here to probably the most underwhelming Red River rivalry of all time. The Oklahoma Sooners and Texas Longhorns both crawling their way into this game with pretty tough losses and just looking terrible in this conference right now. Texas is actually underdogs at home, 2.5 points, Oklahoma favored.
Yeah, this is, we said earlier, I think this is going to be the most underwhelming, least appealing Red River rivalry that we have seen in quite some time. And if there was a way I could take both of these teams against the spread, I would. If this was an even number, I'd just go out and flat out say it's a push, because that's probably what would happen. I honestly have no idea. Texas has not looked the part in either of the two conference games they've played, but neither has Oklahoma.
You told me you were never going to pick Texas on a spread ever again. So
yeah, I know. And then Oklahoma went and lost their game too. And now I feel the same way against them. But it's a noon game. I don't like noon games for home teams. Give me Oklahoma at 2.5.
Oh, come on, Treigh. All right, taking Oklahoma at -2.5, and a massive over-under for points in this game, probably because Texas' defense has looked atrocious so far. 73 points, Treigh, over-under on that.
Well, both teams, as bad as they've been, but neither team has it's been for a lack of their offensive prowess. They've both been able to score points. It's their defense that's been the issue for both teams. So go ahead, give me the over. Yeah,
this is there's not going to be a lot of... If you're a defensive guy, then you're going to cringe watching this game, so I wouldn't recommend watching it if you like defense. So Treih's on Oklahoma at -2.5 and over on 73 as Oklahoma takes down the Red River rivalry in this next installment, unfortunately for myself. But let's move on here, Treigh. We got... number 4 ranked... were we talking about NC State, Virginia? I can't remember.
Yeah, because NC State picked up that win last week against Pitt.
Right.
I feel like they've earned a spot in our weekly picks with that win.
Okay, so Virginia's favored by 9.5 at home, welcoming NC State.
I I'm not going to go on record saying I think NC State will win this game. They did have a big win against Pitt, but I do think NC State will keep it close. And at the very least, 9.5 is a lot of points against a team that just pulled off a big upset. Go ahead and give me the Wolfpack here.
NC State to cover, 9.5. Moving on here to number 4 ranked Florida, traveling to number 21 ranked Texas A&M, coming off their big loss to Alabama last week, getting blown out. But Florida only favored by 6.5 on the road here.
Yeah, jump on this while it's at 6.5. I think Florida will win by more than a touchdown, but if you can get it at 6.5, I'd be all over that. A&M's defense has been putrid, to say the least, to start the year, giving up massive amounts of points to Alabama, and then not even looking good against Vanderbilt either. Go ahead, jump on Florida. Florida's offense might be the best offense in all of college football. Their defense is just not good. But I still like Florida to win by at least 7.
Okay. Do you like the over-under here at 57?
Yeah, go ahead and take the over, too. Florida's going to score points, and A&M should be able to score on that weak defense.
Okay. Moving on here, game of the week here, South Carolina Vanderbilt. Unfortunately, we're not going over that one. We're going to move on to Duke and Syracuse, an ACC battle, and Duke favored by 2.5 on the road, traveling to the Cuse.
Yeah, I think I've picked Duke twice now so far this year to cover, and they've let me down both times. Going off of that alone, I'm going to go Syracuse.
Okay. Taking the orange at plus 2.5 to cover. We'll have to see how that goes for Treigh. 2 unranked teams there, but the interesting matchup to cover. Next, we've got number 24 ranked Iowa State making their debut in the AP poll, as Treigh had mentioned earlier in the show. They are welcoming Texas Tech, who almost beat the Texas Longhorns 2 weeks ago. It wasn't for a miracle onside kick late in the game, and Texas being able to win that game in overtime. Iowa State favored by 12.5 at home.
This is a game that I think could be a sneaky good competitive game. But I do think Iowa State has the offense to run away with it late. Brock Purdy is a really good quarterback, and as we've seen so far, maybe he might be the best quarterback in that conference this season, just with the way that the team's playing overall. Go ahead and give me Iowa State at 12.5.
Okay, Iowa State to cover the 12.5 points. So big spread there, but Treigh's okay with it for Iowa State. We're going to skip that next game, Treigh. We're going to leave that best for last for you. It's a big game, so we'll let you finish off with that. The next game here, BYU. Wow, what a spread against UTSA, favored by 34 points.
Yeah, BYU hasn't let me down this year. They had a big spread last weekend and ended up winning by, I think, 40 points against the team they played there. BYU favored by 34 here against UTSA. I think BYU covers. They haven't let me down yet. They're a really good team. They can run the ball down everybody's throats that they play, especially these weaker teams that they're forced to play because of the non-conference games being BYU's not in a conference, so they weren't able to play any conference games, so they had to, with all the other teams going conference only, they had to make like a makeshift schedule. And so they're playing all these bad teams. Go ahead, give me BYU at 34.
Okay, sounds good. The Niagara Employment Help Center helping job seekers find work with their free services and counseling professionals. 6100 Throllstone Road, Niagara Falls, across from Camisos Plaza. Book your appointment today at 905-358-0021 or ehc.on.ca if you're looking for a job during these tough times here. On to 2 teams here, Treigh, that were both actually one team won last week. Another team looked really disappointing. We have Arkansas and Auburn. So Arkansas coming off a big win against Mississippi State last week. Arkansas, a very bad performance against Georgia last week. Auburn at home, though, favored by 14 points.
Yeah, after the performance Auburn just had against Georgia and then the performance Arkansas had against Mississippi State, I think the spread is a little too high. I'd be more inclined to take Auburn if it was around 10. But as it is now sitting at 14, I think I'm going to jump on Arkansas.
Okay, Arkansas with their big win last week against a ranked team. So Treigh's going with Arkansas to cover the 14 points against number 13, Auburn. Big one there. Next, moving on here. Unfortunately, we're not going to be picking Pitt this week. They had a very disappointing week last week, and Boston College just not that appealing of a game. Moving on to TCU coming off their big victory against the Texas Longhorns, and Kansas State, who had a big victory against the Oklahoma Sooners a few weeks back. So TCU favored, and the Horned Frogs favored by 8 points at home.
Right, so I still don't think Kansas State is a good team. They're just that team that is Oklahoma's kryptonite, which is why they won. I do think TCU's defense is better, one of the best, if not the best, in the Big 12. Give me TCU at 8.
Okay, so he's picking TCU to continue to ride that momentum and up the Big 12 conference standings. Next, we've got number 2 ranked Alabama traveling to Ole Miss. A pretty big spread there on the road, 23.5 for the Crimson Tide to try to cover.
Yeah, 23.5. It's a big spread, but it's also Alabama. And then you got Lane Kiffin. This will be the first matchup between between Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin as a head coach. Alabama under Nick Saban has never lost to one of his former coordinators. It's a pretty crazy stat. I think he's something like 21-0 against head coaches that were a former coordinator of his. Don't expect that to change this weekend either. Does Ole Miss cover though? I'm going to go ahead and say no. Alabama 23.5.
Okay, so Trey's going with Alabama to cover. They did it last week. They didn't do it 2 weeks ago, so hopefully they'll be 2-1 for Trey on the year covering against these teams. We'll have to wait and see. Our boys UAB are playing Rice this week. There's no spread on that, so unfortunately we can't pick UAB and their amazing logo, but we're going to skip down to Mississippi State and Kentucky, another unranked matchup in the SEC. Kentucky favored by 2.5 points at home. You picked them to be upset last week, and they were. So what are you thinking of Kentucky this week, welcoming Mississippi State?
Well, Kentucky was my upset lock of the week last week, and let's go ahead and make that 2 weeks in a row. Upset alert again. Mississippi State gets the job done.
Okay, I need to get like a sound effect for your upsets, because this is big time stuff right here. So you're throwing shade at the Kentucky Wildcats once again, and our good buddy Tyler Jones. But Mississippi State at plus 2.5.
I just want to go on record too and say I picked Kentucky to beat Auburn week 1. I thought Kentucky was going to be good this year. They have been anything but. And I think Mississippi State's just going to rebound after that tough loss to Arkansas, and they're going to revamp some of the air raid. And I don't think Kentucky's offense will be able to keep up with Mississippi State's. Okay,
coming off their loss to Arkansas last week. So moving into probably one of the top 2 games of the week here, I would say it's probably the best as far as how high the teams are ranked. We have number 1 ranked Clemson welcoming number 7 ranked Miami, Florida. Clemson favored by 14 at home. Do you think that the Hurricanes keep it close?
I do. Like we said earlier in the show, Clemson is yet to cover this year. I think Miami is just playing. I don't think they're as talented. They're nowhere near as talented as Clemson. Excuse me. And if you just look at recruiting rankings, they're up there, but they should not be able to play on the same field as Clemson, if you're catching my drift in terms of just the way the recruiting rankings work out. But that's not always the way it shakes out on the field. Miami's playing with a lot of confidence right now. They think and they know that they're an elite program again. They think that they are back to the ways of the 90s and the early 2000s Miami football. I don't think Miami wins, but I do think they keep it close. Give me Miami to cover.
Okay, Trey's taking Miami to cover the 14 points against number 1 ranked Clemson. Big time there. Last plug here to the Spicy Olive Bar and Grill, family owned and operated since 2003, serving authentic and unique Italian-style food, just off the historic Clifton Hill in Niagara Falls. This month's promo code is Armchair Veal for 10% off your entire order for takeout or when you dine in. 905-371-2323 or spicyolivebarandgrill.com to book your reservation today. Trey, we've got number 5 ranked Notre Dame welcoming Florida State, favored by 21 at home. Do you expect the Fighting Irish to put a whooping on the Seminoles here?
Florida State is a dumpster fire. I'm just going to go out and say that. They struggled pretty mightily against Jacksonville State this past week. And if you're not familiar with Jacksonville State, that is a team that lost to Austin Peay last year. So a team that plays in the same conference as my alma mater, which is an FCS program. So Jacksonville State's not a good – they're good for what they are in the FCS, but they're not a team that should be able to compete with a powerhouse program like Florida State. That just shows where Florida State's at right now. I think Notre Dame wins this game, wins big, and I'm also going to jump on the over.
Okay, so Notre Dame at minus 21 and the over on the 52 points. So Trey's not a fan of the Florida State Seminoles and where their program is headed. And I saved this one for last. It's not a night game. It's actually a 3:30 game, but it's a big game for Treigh and his Tennessee Vols. Number 14 ranked, traveling to number 3 Georgia. Huge game. I know we've heard Trey's thoughts and how he feels about Georgia over the last year of doing the show. Not a big fan of the Bulldogs, so Georgia favored by 12.5 at home against your Tennessee Volunteers. Treigh, big SEC matchup. What do you got?
This is going to be a telltale game for Tennessee this year. For one, this is going to have huge implications on recruiting. Tennessee is in a battle with Georgia for 3 different 5-star recruits right now, and I think a lot of those guys are probably going to make their decision based on how this game goes. And not only that, but Tennessee has been getting a lot of recognition from the national media, especially with how they played against Missouri and just how dominant the offensive line and defensive lines were. A lot of people agree Tennessee has the talent again to compete with Georgia. Tennessee's got probably the best offensive line, maybe outside of Alabama, in the entire country. The spread opened up at 14, which you can see it's dropped down to 12.5, so money's been coming in on Tennessee. I'm not ready to say that Tennessee's going to win this game. I have to see it first before I can predict it. Tennessee hasn't even been close with Georgia the past few years. Georgia's run away with every game. But I do think Tennessee is back, able to compete, and I think Tennessee keeps this close. I think it's a low-scoring game. Do think Georgia wins, but I'm going to take Tennessee to cover. Okay,
so you're taking Tennessee at plus 12.5 to cover against the Georgia Bulldogs. And you got to pick the over-under for this game, Treigh. 43 points. It's a pretty low one considering Georgia's defense.
Yeah, 43 is low, but I don't think Tennessee's defense is obviously weaker, I think, than their offense, but I think Georgia's offense is way weaker than their defense. I think this is going to be a very low-scoring game. I could see it ending somewhere around 21-20, which would then put it at the under. So go ahead and give me the under.
All right, sounds good. So Trey's picking his Tennessee Vols to cover and the under, but he still thinks Georgia is going to win the game. We'll have to wait and see with that. His upset of the week is Mississippi State over Kentucky. Treigh, what's your lock of the week?
My lock is going to be Florida at 6.5 over A&M. Like I said, if you can find that, I just actually checked on the site I use for betting, and they're sitting at 7 on that website. So if you can find it at 6.5, jump all over it.
Okay, so Trey's telling you, get the Florida Gators at 6.5 if you can over Texas A&M, who have not looked impressive so far this year, and he thinks Mississippi State's going to get back on track against Kentucky. So, with that being said, Treigh, what obviously you know what game you're looking forward to is Georgia, Tennessee, but give the viewers out here last-minute thoughts. What a game or two that you might think to watch on your Saturday?
Miami and Clemson is obviously one of them. That's going to be a really good game. It should be a fight all the way till the end. Much like Georgia is going to be the real test for Tennessee, Clemson will be the real test for Miami. So to see if either team or program is actually back to the way things used to be, both teams will be they don't necessarily have to win, they just have to be competitive. So look for 2 competitive games there. Outside of those 2, I think the Florida and A&M game could be a good one too. Florida's offense is fun to watch. They have a guy there named Kyle Pitts who has 6 touchdowns as a tight end through 2 games, which is unheard of. He's going to be a first rounder. So yeah, I think that would be the other game, like a noon game, Florida A&M, afternoon, Tennessee, Georgia, night, Miami, Clemson.
What about the Red River rivalry?
Yeah, you can pass on that one.
I'll be watching that one, unfortunately, probably with a sad face the whole time. But that being said, guys, hopefully you guys enjoy this is week 6 of college football. So with that being said, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of Straight to the Extra Point Alma Mater, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your source of North American sports coverage by sports fans, for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the good old Niagara region. As always, I'm one of your hosts of this show, Cappy. You can follow me on Twitter at Capoots13 with a Canadian Z. As well, you can follow my co-host Treigh Patterson at Treigh Patterson. Again, you can check him out at Fox Sports Knoxville as well, covering the Tennessee Vols. Some hot take articles over there for Treigh, so give him some love over there. A big thank you to all of our great sponsors who help put us on, support the network, keep us show on the air. Make sure you're checking them out and using those promo codes, telling them that the Armchair GM sent you, and supporting your local businesses during this time. It's very important. And finally, to you viewers out there for tuning in and listening along for this episode, hopefully Treigh can make you some money this week on these picks. And lastly, again, this has been Straight to the Extra Point Alma Mater on the Armchair GM Sports Network, by sports fans, for sports fans. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your Canadian Thanksgiving and enjoy some college football.